Hello, this is Gene again. I still can't get rid of all the sunlight that's coming in, although in Florida right now it is um, kind of dingy. I don't know if I can change this. I guess I can. I don't know if you can actually see it. No, you can't. Anyway, we had a big rain recently. I went down this morning and I did my lawn, and I did the next door neighbor's lawn because it's been sitting there forever. And the woman next door is like 70 years old, and her husband died a couple years ago, and I try to help when I can. The person right next to us is the one next to her always says to say something to me when I'm actually doing her lawn, so I don't put anything on his lawn. It's like, you're a friend of this person, you live right next to her, but you never help her. I don't understand that. But anyway, that's just something I want to talk about. Anyway, I want to talk about a couple of things that happened in the news and something I saw recently. I forgot his name. There was a contestant on the Bachelor, um, and he was a white guy, a Southern white guy that had said things on Twitter that many people like me might say, comparing the KKK to Black Lives Matter, saying something like that. And apparently, and this is something I don't really understand. I think this is 2017. I think his last name is Garrett. And I looked online. The only reason I knew about it because I was going through my video feeds and I saw that Jesse Lee Peterson was talking about him last year. And I'm like, it's strange that nobody in whatever the alt-right is didn't come out and actually defend this guy. Now, again, a lot of us in the alt-right, those who support the idea of the alt-right, are saying that those who are native in their country should be able to keep their country basically what it is, right? Keep it a super majority of the persons that actually created the that actually enforced or created the actual country. Nobody on the alt-right actually said anything about this, and I'm looking all over YouTube trying to see if anybody talked about it. And the only person that talked about it was this black conservative uh, pastor about how he was basically a white man that was getting lynched on stage. And if you actually watch the video, he's just like he's led into the slaughter at on this show. Now, again, most people in the alt right don't watch reality TV shows. It's just something that's not really we look at because we know it's kind of all stupid, and maybe he did it to himself to be on some stupid show like this. But he was just like it was like watching the Vietnam tapes or these guys being told to say something bad about the United States and had to. Looks like I'm getting pushed off. I'm getting knocked off a couple times on here. I don't know exactly what's going on, but anyway, like I said, this guy named Garrett, I think was his last name, and he, like I said, he was on this show where he was vying for a black woman's attention to be his girlfriend or his boyfriend or whatever. I guess to get married. I don't know how this works. I don't really care. But it's just how everybody stood up and talked about bad he was, some of the things he said on Twitter, that all of us who might not necessarily be conservative, but might have some of the same type of opinions that this person does. And it's nobody, like I said, in the alt-right actually talked about this. Nobody said, hey, we need to defend this guy. Now, again, maybe later on he came out and said that this was all bullshit, that he never really felt that way. And I mean, what would you do in his place? And I'll try to find it when this goes through. I'll try to go and find the actual video so you guys can look at it when this thing uploads, and you can listen to this happening. And I would have thought this would have been a big deal. And I don't know where the hell I was when this was going on. I just think that anytime you have a chance to have a white guy that's a straight white guy, and on national TV try and call him racist, and everybody stands up and applauded. So the crowd was against him. All the other men that wanted to vie for this black woman's attention was against him. And then the woman tried to say, since I am a representative of the African American females, I need to talk about your racist tweets. And he has to sit there and say, well, I've grew up since then, and back then it was just more ignorant. No, I've looked at the tweets, and Jesse Peterson actually looked at this as well. Now, maybe there's other things out there where he compares black people to apes. I don't know, because that's what we are right now. Anytime anybody that might be black or identifies as black is compared to a ape, even a fictional ape that actually a human it's actually a human that has costumes on them. That it's racism, and you have to destroy someone's career. And of course, I'm talking about Roseanne Barr. Now, I don't care for her at all. I didn't like the first time it came out, Ranzo, whatever. And the new one, I didn't watch that because they have it's just craziness that they have, and it's the entire her whole staff was liberals, and she really is too. She just has it. She liked Trump, and Trump is never really conservative in a lot of ways. A lot of people think that he's this white hope for conservatism, but he's not. He's not really conservative, and he lets his daughter pretty much run the country in a lot of ways when it comes to feminist bullshit. So anyway, so I'm watching this, and I can't believe it that he had to sit there, and you just look at his eyes, his that whole saying that it's the sign or the stay away to your soul. You could tell that he was like, there's nothing I can do here but to sit here and just submit. And here's this strong Southern white man having to submit to PC culture because we can't talk what we want to talk about. Even our thoughts have to be regulated because he had a thought that he said that the Black Lives Matter has an ideology that it's not really good for everybody. And anybody who's been on their website knows the demands that they have. And it's a very left ideology that most people would never be for if they actually research what they're behind and who actually started the whole damn thing. So it's strange that what we're going through right now. When I talked about, I think that the West is falling. I really believe that we're not going to come back because too many white guys will just sit there and take it. Now, I'm not saying that in that same situation that I would not have done the same shit that he did. Maybe not.Maybe I would have. I would hope that I would have stood up. Obviously, back then, when I was in my 30s, that I had a real use of my vocabulary, which I don't really have anymore after my stroke. But if I had it back then, I would assume I would have stood up and said, I'm more than happy to have this debate, but we're not going to do it right now. If you think what I said on Twitter was racist, maybe you should research what you think race is or racism is, because just not white people can be racist, and I don't think anything he said was racist. He basically parroted a lot of the not even right wing, but just conservative viewpoints. And we're seeing today, because of what just happened to Roseanne, that our people on CNN, and again, Don Lemon, are sitting there trying to say that everything that Trump is responsible for everything that's going on. That he's the one that actually told Roseanne to do this. And because of him, everybody's just emboldened to say shit that is about people. But they're also trying to say now that people that voted for Trump were racist just because they voted for Trump. And I voted for Trump, Obama twice. I guess what am I? Am I stupid? I don't understand that he had 7 million people that changed from voting for Democrats to Republicans in the last election. And I said this before the election. I said there are a lot of people like me. They're going to vote for Trump because they know something's wrong on the left. And this is clear. You go on Twitter and you listen how they excuse what they've done, what the Democrats have done to Bernie Sanders, what they've done with the Trump administration before Trump was even elected, and they just say, "Oh no, it was fine." What people we're trying to save Trump. You tell me why a opposition party would sit there and do that to save the other party? Come on, clearly he was spied on, and Trump said this before he even got in office that he was spied on, and clearly it's all coming out right now, and the media is not doing anything about it. And I don't watch Fox News. The only person I watch on Fox News is Tucker Carlson. The rest of them I don't give a shit about. They're just too much that they talk about that is just the same bullshit. Those conservatives, I don't really know about that. But a lot of things that a lot of things that Tucker talks about kind of like relates what we're trying to do in this country to stop the native people to not get in the shaft all the time. Now, of course, Carlson doesn't really care what color you are. So, but sometimes he'll come out and you understand what he's trying to say. He's a normie, let's say. But anyway, it's one of those weird things that it's everywhere right now. Now again, not everybody watches CNN. I mean, they get less than 100 million or a million people watching them at any time. Same thing with Fox. They get 3 or 4 million people watching them at one time. So that's 1% of the population. But they have a lot of pull. And when the president is watching Fox and then he tweets it out to his 60 million subscribers, and then you have all the people have to come out and say shit about Trump no matter what. We're talking about Tommy Robinson. It's an interesting thing. I want to talk about Tommy Robinson, but there is another person that I actually follow on YouTube and also on Twitter, Diana Davidson. She was a MRA, a men's rights activist, but what she talks about now is helping the falsely accused, mostly in Canada. But she did come out this morning and said that she's probably going to lose a lot of followers because a lot of people knew. I mean, Tommy knew what he was doing was wrong. He knew that he was probably going to get caught for doing this. Now, I support exactly. I 100% support what he did because he has to. Somebody's going to have to be a martyr. I guess he's going to be that martyr to wake up England and allow people to have free speech. But he knew that if he did this, that he probably might get picked up, and it would be a violation of his probation from his first problem. So, but he's an agitator. He's been that way for a long time. He was in a group that I didn't really support way back then because I wasn't really awake in what's going on. Again, I do like him. She is a rad. Is she good or bad? Yeah, she's something. She obviously is hanging out with one of the kingpins of. Yeah, she was a John the Other, and I think that they're still together. And he's one of the kings of like the MIG Tau movement. And I had a little phase in my life that I was in MIG Tau, or at least what they believed, female nature, things like that. But they get too black-pilled for me and keep telling me that nothing can happen, that we can't change things, that we can't change the family courts, that we can't do this. And I think that we can. So, again, that was 2 or 3 years ago that I was really into that. I have no problem being a MGTOW, but the problem is, hopefully you will reproduce because we need people that have a sense of the world to have babies. We need that. I don't know how that works if you're MGTOW. I guess you can surrogate with some woman and do it. But I understand when somebody's younger than me, especially, to look at the systems and say it's not going to be good for men. I'm a man. I've been married for 20 years. If I knew now what I know what's going on, I probably would never got married. I had this conversation with my wife not that long ago, saying if we get married, do you get half of everything, including my disability, my military retirement? And so we had a long conversation about that. And she believes of certain things that I don't agree with. I don't think that she get 1 cent of my military retirement, not one. She didn't do anything. She was doing her own thing. She was going to school at that time. She didn't really do anything to support my career. She didn't go with me to the worst places in the world. She didn't study with me when I had to take my tests to get promoted. She was my wife, and that's my retirement, not hers. She's covered. If I die, she gets $500,000 from the military, $4,000 from my previous employer before I had my disability, and then she gets SBP, which is half of my retirement anyway. So if I'm still around, I'm married to her. I don't want to think that she shouldn't have. We need to protect and provide for a family, but at the same time, we need to understand that there's a reason that there are a lot of people that go to the side of being a MGTOW because they know that the family court's against them. So when I started this whole journey years ago, I was, oh, that's funny. Um, obviously, we have the technology to do something like that. You know, we've had for a long time to have a male pill, but nobody wants to do it, and it's always the feminist groups that stop us from doing this. They don't want us to have autonomy of what we want to have babies or not. We just going to give all to the rights and responsibilities to the women, and also the law is on their side as well. So, I mean, this all comes back 4 or 5, 6 years ago when I started going down this road and I became anti-feminism. My mother was a second wave feminist. I grew up in a feminist household. I was told never do anything to a woman the wrong way. Make sure that she's not necessarily consent, but it was one of those things that you have to be responsible for a woman no matter what, even though they're adults. That we have to be responsible for women. So over these last 4 or 5 years on YouTube, I've talked about that we hold women to absolutely no responsibility at all, and there's a reason why that happens. And unfortunately, it's us for allowing them to happen. We've allowed it to happen. We said, oh, we don't want to hear the nagging anymore, so we're going to change all the laws and do all this stuff because they don't want to hear about it, because at the end of the day, we really want to have sex with them. And I hate to say that's what it's about, but that's why it is, that a guy wants to go in and change the law when it comes to family courts, shared parentage, because they know that if that happens, that the power is away from the women, and they want to regain or keep that power that they have and that dynamic when it comes to having the babies. So, again, this is not all women, that they don't go into a marriage to actually think that later on that they're going to do that. But there is female nature, it's called gynocentrism and hypergamy, that they will always, I didn't see that, I'll have to look at it later. But there is something that's well in their, like, not in their DNA, but they have to always make sure that they're looking ahead to be provided for. So it's not strange at all that women, 70% of all divorces are started by females, and most of the time it isn't because they're getting beat up or anything like that. They just found something better, or maybe they got a degree or something, and they can make more money than their spouse. Women don't like it when you make more or make less than they do. They don't like when you stay home either. They don't think you're a man that way. They won't say it to your face. This idea that they like nice guys is bullshit. They might want to talk to them. They might want to be with them for 5 seconds, but that's not what they want. And there are a lot of people a lot smarter than me that can talk a hell of a lot better than me that talks about this. Bill Burr has talked about it. Jesse Peterson talks about this all the time. Now, he talks of it from a spiritual side of it, but whatever he says is actually true. Women look at men as weak if you're a certain way. They don't. You have to like not even know that they're there, and then all of a sudden they want to come back to you. It's one of the weirdest things that you have when you never could. Early in my life, I couldn't get any dates, but the first time I had a female with me, all of a sudden the other ones came out of the woodworks, and all of a sudden they're like, "Oh my God, there's something here on this guy." But so like I said, I went through the whole MIG Tau thing, and I agreed with a lot of things that they said. But at that point, I was like 15 years into a marriage, and I wasn't going to all of a sudden just leave that marriage. And I have a disabled kid. There's no way I'm going to do that. So, and I like my wife. Love is an interesting thing. I don't know. It's different, and there's no real thing like you see in Hollywood. It just doesn't happen that way. We're good together. She's supportive at some things. She doesn't like what I talk about the alt-right. She doesn't like that at all, because it's strange, because when I met her, she was a very conservative and I was a liberal. So we kind of like gone the other way. And this all happened when she went to college. It became was it 99% of all inventions were by men, that we've done everything. That testosterone that gives us the risk-taking that we allow us to go out and do the great things. Now, we do a lot of stupid shit too, and so it's not any obviously, when they did the whole bell curve about the IQ, we found out there are a lot of men that have high IQ, geniuses, and then a lot of morons I mean, that's, but overall, we are much smarter. So talking about all this. So I'm sitting there watching Draft Date as well. It was a movie with Kevin Costner, and it's an okay movie, but there's a little scene in the movie where he talks about that women are somewhat smarter than men, and that we're just here on the ride. And it's just part of this whole media that's been going on for the last 30 or 40 years. It's basically trying to tell us that we're not worthy of them. And it's like, you've got to be freaking kidding me. If it wasn't for men, first of all, the species wouldn't be here. But we'll be in a hut somewhere. Obviously, we're not pygmies or anything, but the West would never happen. Without a risk-taking, none of this would have happened. And a lot of guys get upset about, for years and years, we had this silent contract with the opposite sex. That we're going to take care of you, we're going to take care of your kids. In the 1900s, it was like we were responsible that we go to jail if the women did something wrong. So we changed some of that in a lot of ways. But still, in our mind, we still think that women have no responsibility, and we still look at them that way. A lot of ways, I've said it before in this channel, that women can be looked at as retarded children in a lot of ways. They take no responsibility. Now, there are some that do. But the idea that without us, but like I said, we had this contract with women, but now a lot of white guys like me, guys that are 50, younger, that have done a lot of great things, are seeing our kids going off to school and being taught how bad that we're the ones with all the privilege, but then they'll say, no, not you, Dad. You're a good guy. You're the good person. It's like, oh, okay, but the guy down the street that looks just like me, that has the same type of job I have, he's the bad guy. I mean, come on now. I mean, it's all part of it, and we just fall into it, and we sit at home and we watch YouTube or we watch the TV, and they show guys getting hit in the nuts, and they show how effeminate we are, and how we have no masculinity at all. And if we talk about masculine, it must be toxic. But no one ever talks about female toxicity. How they... Yeah, that's very true. This idea, I'm sure you've heard this, that if women run the world, it'd be so much better. Yeah, right. Have you gone to the Nordic countries right now? They're run by women, and seeing all the shit that they're leaving in because women are so empathetic that they want to let all these people in, and then all of a sudden they're raping your kids, and you don't want to tell anybody about it. Well, it's not true. We've got to be nice to them. It's just, and we just seeing this happening, and the media just sits there and just says, oh, it's not that big of a deal. Okay, whatever. So nobody's waking up. So I guess how I started this whole thing was, I don't want to be black-pilled when it comes to this. I know that black pills when it comes to MIG Tau is a little different when we talk about the alt-right. I think in both areas that we can do better. A couple years ago, I had a big, long conversation with, what was his name? He was a MIG Tau. Oh, my God. He used to do really good stuff. Not Barbarossa, but the other. Oh, God. Anyway, I said that the MIG Taus and MRAs need to get together because really we're part of the same side of the manosphere. And the guy basically said it'll never change. So we're just going to go along with that. No shit, yeah. I mean, obviously the one guy that's on YouTube right now, I think he's Swedish, the bodybuilder guy. So there are some people in Sweden that's trying to do better, but they did a story on a study on that, how virtuous that the Swedes are, and they're like the worst of all white people. Their virtue and everything, and they blame everything on themselves. And they're like, go ahead, come in and live in my house, and I don't really care if you. Yes. So there is. Go ahead and have sex with my kid. And there's Swedish TV, there are PSAs that actually show them showing the migrants having sex with their women in like art or like cartoon things. This is how he's going to put it in, all that stuff. And this is that everybody can see in the public sphere. And it's like, what the fuck is going on here? So I hope that there's a change. I mean, I don't think it's going to happen. I think that obviously in Europe it's going to be Islamic. It's going to be probably a theocracy. I can say the word. That's going to be run by Islamic people. Maybe not in my lifetime, but certainly in the next 40 or 50 years it's going to happen. And then we're going to have to deal with that. And a lot of times on the channel I always talk about the alt-right is very important. The idea of saving the West. I like the idea that I have no problem, no matter what I have to say after this, is that Western civilization was created by the white man. But, and a lot of people get upset with me with this, is that the original sin of this country, other than what we did to the Indians, which I don't really care about, they were here, we conquered them, and so what? But we had slaves, okay? And I think that at the end of the day, that they have to be on our side to stop this from happening. In another 50 years, now again, I won't be here, the country will be mostly be Hispanic, because black people they reproduce, but they also kill themselves at the same way, at the same level, and they haven't really changed. They've been around 12 to 13% of the population for a long time, when they actually have a lot of babies. Now they also have a lot of abortions. So, although I'm against abortion, if there was an abortion, we would have probably 20% of the population would be black. I don't know if it'd be better or worse for them, but it can't be. When you have 75% of their households are single mothers, obviously it's not a good thing. But nobody wants to talk about that. Everybody talks about how great women are, and the whole society looks at the single mother as the epitome of women. And it's the worst, probably the worst thing that's ever happened to us. Now, it's all part of the same thing. People talk about cultural Marxism and all that stuff. It's all part of it, but it's the degradation of the family unit. And we allow this to happen, and we don't really care because the black man's down the road, but he's also killing half of all people getting killed. He's doing more stuff that he shouldn't be doing, and they don't care, and they want to blame us for their problems. Whatever. At the same time, we need to be together, because whatever the culture that's coming up, the third world culture that's coming in this country, is going to dominate the country. Yeah, interesting. Yes. There's a lot of things when it comes to the black community, and how a lot of when I was going through my whole MRA stuff, and I advocate for men, no matter what color you are, especially if in this country and you're here legally. I'm going to advocate for you if something happens to you. But there was a long talk about power in the 1900s and stuff, when not the slaves, but the servants, the black man would be banging the white chick, or even whatever, and then she would say, no, he raped me, and of course they went up and hanged him. And there's probably hundreds of examples of that, where a woman just did this, and how evil and depraved that she did this. She took whatever, and then watched him getting killed. And women have always had power. This idea that they don't have any power. They are probably the number one serial killers of all time have been women, through poisoning. They're not like the serial killers like us. We go and get them and do strange shit with their bodies and shit like that. But women will fucking just kill you just to kill you, and for money, for $5 more. There are a lot of, now they're not at the same level. Okay, there's not as many serial killers per capita, but women have issues with that as well. So no one talks about toxic femininity. Basically, they say everything that women want is right. So you see that the public schools are basically geared to the females. We don't really have shops anymore, no vocal stuff anymore, vocational type shit. They kind of frown on you going outside and running around. So they take away the boys' side, and then they medicate them when I was young, I used to fall out of my chair. I would have been clearly diagnosed with ADHD, no question about it. And I had problems with it. I had finally had male mentorships, and it changed all that. I grew through it. I kind of grew out of it as I got older. And the military really helped me with that because I still had it before I went in the military, and I had to learn about time priority and figure my head out that way. Now, since my stroke, it's kind of weird now. London is not a British city anymore, unfortunately. Years ago, I was stationed in Feltwell, which was in Norwich or Norfolk, I think. I don't. Maybe it was in Suffolk. It's right in between the two counties, and about. So I moved. I used to go down to London a couple times. I went down and watched some soccer games, but this was only in the 1990s, and it was still very white back then, very British back then. But now, good Lord, some of the videos that I see, Air Force, at the Air Force, at RF Feltwell. I was a space systems person. I don't know if you've actually been there. Gay. Hey, that's fine. That's fine. The thing was I knew when I was 18 that I didn't have the physical abilities probably to get through Marine or the Navy boot camp. So I went to the Air Force. My stepfather was a Marine and a Navy person, and he told me the Army's fine, but it's the same thing. I knew I would have been in the infantry, and I was such a liberal back then. I didn't want to kill anybody, so I figured I wanted a job that was more of a like office type job, and that's pretty much what I had. My brain was set up to be more electrical in an engineering type of sense. So I worked in space. I also worked in like HR type of thing for my first 8 years, and then I was in space the rest of the time. And that was all interesting stuff. And I know a lot of shit, especially, and I want to talk about this at some point with what's his face? The guy. Oh, I forgot his name. I live streamed with him about 2 months ago, and I'm going to talk about what happened in 9/11. I was in a command post during that going on. And a lot of shit that's out there, it's all bullshit. But anyway, I'm going to talk to him about that. I don't know what the hell is his name. He's a writer. He lives in England. Whatever. So, yeah, I don't think that as a lot of people they talk about like Generation Z now, that they're going to be the wake up for the United States and everything. And I don't necessarily believe that, because my son, although he is aware, he's been red-pilled, he knows all this shit. No, I know him, but I've never been on his show. I've only been on one live stream. Hopefully at the end of the year I'm going to do the Millennial Yules, or whatever it is, with Millennial Woes, and we're going to talk about what's going on in the United States. But I don't know what I was going to talk about. But anyway, I don't know. Oh, my red pill was never really a eureka thing. I had my stroke in this December of 1920, December of 2010, and it was a pretty major type of stroke. I couldn't talk for like three months. But while I was at home, I started going online. Because I used to watch MSNBC and Keith Olbermann. I thought he was a great guy, and I thought that that lesbian girl, I thought that she was right, that everything that they're talking about was truth. Not necessarily truth, but more factual than the right. And I started going through it, and I found a couple things what they said was so wrong, especially about the pay gap. And I started looking at, they're lying about this, they're going to be telling me, maybe they're lying about other shit, and I started going down that rabbit hole. One of the first videos I did was talking about going down that rabbit hole, but I didn't go all the way down where I'm at right now. I was at the top of the rabbit hole about the pay gap, rape culture, all that shit, that what they call the whole low-hanging fruit feminism, all this stuff, but they're all related. So, but I had over time that I just started having this wake up, and then I started realizing, why did I feel so bad about other people's lives when I had nothing to do? When I've had several black friends, and people say that when you have black friends, oh, that's not real. You can't actually have black friends. And I grew up in a very multicultural area in South St. Pete. I actually grew up when I was 5, 6 years old. I was in East St. Louis. But back then, everybody had fathers back then, and nobody was killing each other back then. We were on the streets playing basketball and shit, and I was called Cracker because I was the only white guy on the block. And when I got this, yeah, no shit. I mean, when you have the time to look it up, but you can't. What I tell my son, the same thing. Do not just get like I did. I was all on the left. Open your eyes to everything, and you come up with your own decisions, because people lie all the damn time on both sides. But there's one thing you should never be ashamed of, is your culture, your heritage, where your grandfather came from, where your great grandfather came from, and that's what you are. And you're the one who has to carry it on. You have to do this. It's important to all of us. So I want you to do this, get a good job, be ready, and then I want you to produce. And I want to have grandbabies before I die. I want this to happen. My other son, with his disability, I'm not sure he'll ever have any kids. And my daughter, who I didn't really raise, she's gay. Whatever. It is what it is. She was a very masculine young girl. She could throw a ball faster than ever I could, and I was a picture in high school. Unbelievable, the talent that this woman has. But, this nature environment when it comes to gay people, I don't know. I've always liked women. And she said the same thing to me. She said, Dad, I always liked women. So you just say, okay, I support you. And she's doing well. But I'm not sure that she's going to have a kid. So I know I shouldn't worry about this, but it's one of those things that if my line is dying, it's just like the West. It's like the native people, their line is dying as well. And eventually, all of our lines are going to die. 100 years from now, or 100,000 years from now, somebody's going to hit our asteroids, probably going to hit this country or this planet and kill us all. Interesting. Okay. You should always be proud of your heritage, where it came from. And certainly we should talk about what our forefathers did, but also say what the great things that they did when they found out that maybe that wasn't the right thing. And that's the greatness of the culture of the white, whatever you want to call it. Like I said many times on my channel, I understand that the West was created by people like me, that look like me. Were there other races that kind of helped? Very, very small of them, but they did. So we should always talk about the greatness of that and talk about the bad things about it, but talk about we're the only ones that stopped all this shit. That slavery, we stopped it. The rule of law, we did all this stuff. This is all that we did. But the last generations, we don't really care about that because we're so nihilistic that we'll never do anything, because the media or weak men, we just allow this to happen. We sit and watch TV all the time, or we're on our PS4s playing that shit, or we're looking at porn. As much as I like looking at a nice-looking woman, this stuff really hurts people. And I know a lot of people that are MIG Taus use porn, and you probably should have access to shit like that, but I also know that it's very damaging. Everything's in moderation. If you have moderation with porn, it's fine. But a lot of guys don't have that, and they have some sort of thing that comes out of that. So I'd rather them just be good men, and whatever that means. You don't necessarily have to have a family to be a good man, but you have to be more than just yourself. So the whole problem with the problem is, when I look at the alt-right, I don't think that they're really right. I don't look at them as a political movement that it's either left or right at all, because most of the people on the right are talking about the individualism and how important that it is. Peterson talks about this all the time. That's Jordan Peterson. And as much as I like a lot of things he has to say, I like a lot of people on both sides. I like Devin Tracy, what he has to say. I like Peterson, what he has to say. I like some of the stuff that Shapiro says, even though I know that he is a Zionist, and he would go back to Israel if it happened. Salt? Not sure what that means. So again, I don't look. I love Devin. I think him and I have had issues in the past. I tried during this whole email stuff with Hillary. I tried to explain it to him because I worked in a SCIF, so I knew what her staff was doing, how it was illegal. And he excused her by saying, well, she wasn't trying to hurt the country. I'm like, Devin, if it would have been me, I'd have been in jail for 10 years for one offense. And they knew exactly what they were doing. And we find out more and more that she was behind the DNC against Bernie. Don't like Bernie. He's a spineless piece of shit. Clearly they're behind spying on Trump. Because even though everything was on their side, I guess they thought, and even though I said this, before the election, I said that Trump was going to win. I actually had the electrical map. I only had one state wrong, and he was going to win. I thought that she would actually win the popular vote, and I was right in all this, and I'm a layman, and I knew this, but everybody was shocked that he won. So I guess they knew it well. I think they understood this as well, and that's why she was spying on him, trying to find out shit that if... Yes, exactly. And I don't understand. Again, that's that gun issue. I'm not a big fan of guns, but I understand what the Second Amendment is about. And obviously, I was in the military, so I had access to guns. And most people that are law-abiding citizens who have guns don't do anything. So it's stupid-ass people that are not doing things legally to do this. But when it comes to Hillary, I just don't understand him. I don't, because he won't let that go. And all the proof is clearly there. And I'd rather him come out and say I was a supporter of Sanders. But he goes on there and he says, this is what I did on my little test, so I'm still a liberal. You know what? I do the same test, and we're very close when it comes to that. And, you know, he's a Generation X guy, but he's a young Generation X, and I'm an old Generation X. And a lot of people, I'm even close to boomer. I know it's a bad word in the alt-right, but I'm like that right at the very end of Generation X. So, and he's one of the younger ones. But he's really in my same generation. We grew up. We have very similar interests. He's on the UFC. He likes that. He loves soccer. But this guy, we talk about privilege. And I love the guy. I mean, I did a video of him when he was about to get picked off of YouTube. And I saying that he needs to be, whatever he has to say should be allowed on YouTube, that it's important. And I compared him to a lot of the great thought providers for years ago. And he's so talented. He really is. I would say he's Jewish by the way he can talk, not normal Jewish, but like David Rubin, those Jews, or Shapiro, those sect of Jews. The guy went to Berkeley and all that shit. So the guy's a smart guy, but clearly his parents were very, very wealthy, and he was allowed to go around the world, and he can do whatever he pretty much wants to do. But he's very talented, and maybe one day I'll get to meet him. I remember one time he was going through the whole thing. He was going to, what was the word he did from, I don't know what the word is. The one that Edward Norton was in the movie. He was a Nazi, and when he curb stomped, because he used to say that all the time. I'm going to go curb stomp you if you disagree with me. And it's like, okay. I said, when I see you when I get to England, I'm going to curb stop you. So, but there's another guy. I don't think he'll ever reproduce. And I mean, Whether or not he's more liberal or not, yes. So I wish he would have some kids. I think that it would be good. The problem is a lot of really smart people, a lot of MIG Taus especially, that are very high IQ are not going to have babies. And all we're doing is we're reproducing from stupid people. And it's not going to be good either. Whether or not you're against immigration, which I am, talk about the third world. The third world is already here. Our IQ levels has already gone down. I think it was over 100 10 years ago. Now it's 97. And it's going to go down further and further because we're importing them and we're breeding with them. I know it must be racist to say this, but this is what happens. And people say, no, it's not genetic at all. Well, it clearly is. You know, if you have all these people from Brazil that are 81 or 82, or you're from sub-African, and it's 70, and you come to the United States and you have sex with a woman that's got 100, the kids are probably going to have 90, and then the next, it's going to go all the way down. And then that movie, I think it was called Idiocracy. It's going to be real life. So I don't know. You know, when I go through life, and I just think as I get close to, I'm at third. I'm not going to say I'm at the fourth quarter left yet. I think I'm in probably the third quarter of my life, depending on what happens to me. I've already had cancer twice. Yeah, you think that it's never going to change. But I really would like to have a time machine just to go forward to see how it turns up, because I don't think it's going to be good. And people look at me, and when I started going down this thing, and says, you're paranoid. I'm like, and actually when I went through my testing for my stroke, I had to go through the stuff. They said I have paranoid type of thing anyway. I got dementia because of the scores I got of these things. And people, oh God, you have dementia. Well, it's not the dementia that you can't walk across the street. It's one of those, I don't know what it is. I don't really think I have it, but it said in my report, and it helped me get my disability, so I'm not going to really complain about it. But I don't see like shadows around me. I just look at what's going on, and yeah, again, in in Britain, it's still 87% white. So people are like, oh, it's not really that bad, because in this country it's 64% white. Of course, if you add in Hispanic white people, it goes about 70%. But clearly, in my lifetime, probably about 80 or so, the white people are going to be the minority in this country. And the idea that you think that the other races are just all of a sudden say, well, that's fine, we're going to do all the affirmative actions that we have for me, for you guys, that's not what's going to happen. And so there's going to be bloodshed. So there's a way to change it, but we elected a guy that wasn't really an alt-right person, but he talked about putting up the wall, the immigration and that stuff, but it hasn't happened. All the other stuff he's done is okay to a point, but clearly I'm not going to vote for anybody else. Yeah. Well, at the end of the day, they said I think when the white man actually wakes up, it's going to be hell for everybody else. The question is, can we all do it together as brothers? My Germanic heritage, my French heritage, the English, Eastern European people, would they all be together on this? I mean, obviously the Polish people are trying to stop the hordes. So there are people that are trying to stop it, but of course, other white people. Yeah, I know. It's part of I can't do anything about it. It's more Belgium than it is French, but it's there. But most of still we're Germanic tribes. Even the ones that are part of the French side are still Germanic tribes. So nothing I can do about it. It is what it is. So, but the idea that at some point we're going to wake up. The question is, it might be too late. But at that point, when we wake up, there are going to be a lot of people getting killed, and it's going to happen. I would like to stop that from happening, and there's a way to do it. It clearly is, but nobody wants to do it because we live in this idea that I thought we stopped the PC shit back in the 90s, but we didn't. All that happened is we won that battle, but all the people stayed in high school or in college and became the professors and become the administrations administrations and the deans of these schools, and now they've done all this shit, and they just convoluted the last generation that came through. Even if they're somewhat conservative, when you go to any college right now, and I mean any college, you're going to have to go through stupid bullshit. It's like a mandatory thing. They have to go there and talk about your white privilege. So when I was listening to Jesse Peterson, and he kind of like talks like me, but not because I had a stroke, but he just talks a certain way. He had a woman on there that did a whole test back, and I guess right after Martin Luther King got killed, and this whole thing with the blue and the blue eyes and the brown eyes, and then they did stuff lists and just had this cast against. Yes, yeah, we don't have any true Darwinian evolution going on anymore. Everybody can get fat and live forever, and then you breed with other stupid people like ourselves, and it goes on and on like that, and you have all these choices, and so you're not curled, and it's going to happen. Either we're going to have a disaster like if Yellowstone blows up and kills half the people in the United States, or if one of the big super volcanoes does it as well, then you might actually have this happen. I don't know if you've seen the Quiet Place. It's not the great movie, but it's something like that ever happened. Not necessarily aliens coming down, but you're going to have people that are going to have to go back to what it used to be. Not necessarily don't want that to happen per se, but yeah, we do have to have a culling, as they say. But this woman back in the 1960s, she did this stuff, and to 3-year-olds or third graders, and did the whole thing with the blue and the eyes. And I've seen it when I grew through school. Yeah, when I went through high school, they did the same thing. And it was after school special too, where they did the whole thing, and it's really easy how you can become like the Nazis were. And I'm like, yeah, it's easy to influence anybody, but this is happening on college campuses for 40 years now. And so these kids come out and they believe all this shit, and maybe later in life they become more conservative, but they still believe it. They still believe the white man is the problem, is responsible for everything that happens to everybody else because of what our ancestors did. And this whole thing started when I started this video was about that one kid. Of course, anybody under 50 is kid to me, but anybody he's on this stupid reality TV show, and he's just being killed by all these people in the crowd and the other people that were the people he was going against for this, to woo this black woman, and then she had to go in there and say this shit, and he was just like in this, what would you do? I mean, and that's exactly how the media looks at it right now. They know that most of the crime in this country is done by people of color. It's true, and it's done at such a high level. And when you talk about black on white versus white on black, it's. I mean, Devin talks about this all the damn time. Is it 25-1 compared? I mean, it's just craziness, and they don't want to talk about it. And I'm like, you don't want to have this conversation? The Black Lives Matter doesn't want to have this conversation. The thought leaders in the black community don't want to have this conversation. We're just going to say that it's okay that you grew up in a single mother household and she's on welfare. So the son comes up and becomes effeminate and does stupid shit. And he ends up going in prison. But all that's the white man's fault. Okay. We got to get past it. And there are good people online that talk about this that I follow that are white or black guys. Yes. Oh, the left is, like I said, for a long time I was part of it. I'm a JFK, RFK Democrat. Of course, I wasn't alive when those guys I was when RFK got killed. But I believe that. My mom was, obviously, she was into that stuff. She used to do the shit with the Democratic Party, working about unions and all that stuff. I thought that was all good shit. I did, to a point. But it's not the left. That left is not what we have right now. And the left is just trying to immigrate all these people in so they could be voters, so they keep their power. There'll still be white people in power. They'll just be people from the left. and they'll just be getting everybody else on the plantation that they have for them, and there'll be dissidents, and it'll probably just be those who somewhat support the alt-right, because there's just no there's going to be a point that we're going to say, Jesus Christ, everybody's going to wake up, and then there's going to be so much bad shit. And Millennial Woes talked about this, and was it 10 minutes from now, 10 hours from now, whatever. He did this whole thing. I think it was in Switzerland for about a year ago, and he's right. We don't know exactly, but this is what's going to happen, and we can talk about it, and we'll be shut down. I'll never be shut down because nobody listens to me, but guys like Tommy Robinson, they're going to be shut down because they're not going down there. I mean, even people are really alt-right, like Lauren Southern, and these people, they know it's coming. And what really pisses me off is guys like Ben Shapiro knows it's coming, but he will still defend Israel's right to only have 99% Jewish people. But then he won't say that for this country, because our country was founded on something totally different when it clearly wasn't. That's not what in the 1790 that said free white men to immigrate to this country. Okay. And of course, that was the no shit. Yeah, that's the whole thing with Tree of Logic, and I like Tree of Logic when she talked. I mean, before this all happened, she kind of like exposed her for what she was. But Candace is a very smart person, so she knows where the money is right now. And yeah, we have the same shit. A lot of people, and I've been told that I'm a cuck online because I don't go far enough. That when I talk about we still have something that we can do. Yeah, in a lot of ways, she's kind of something. She's an Amazon for sure. She's like 6'3", just unbelievable, physical-looking woman. Can you imagine? I mean, she was a cop. Could you imagine her coming up and trying to frisk you? Oh my God! But anyway, she knows. I mean, obviously, Candace knows what she's doing. But what she did to was it Blair? The transgender girl? Kept calling her. Kept calling her he. Now, again, I know, and Breer also says this, that she knows that she's a male, but it's just such a small, Bear White, but it's just a small percentage of people, and it just distracts us from what we're trying to actually accomplish, and we're never going to get there because we're going to sit there and look at this. Oh my God, you're sexist for saying she's a female. It's like, come on. Ben Shapiro got in a problem with that too. It's like, but again, there are so many, whatever you want to call them, cucks or whatever. And I did a series that I exposed cuckery. But I don't know. It's a strange day. So as I just go through life, my street doesn't look like nothing's really happening here, although our crime is up. But I don't know. I think I'm going to stop right now. I'm breaking my brain right now. It's something else I can't do. After about an hour, my brain really gets bad when I'm talking, and a lot of words will come out not even right, and I can't really talk. Anyway, so thank you for watching, and I'll do something later, and I'll try to put out the video that either I'll put Jesse Peterson's video about this 30-year-old guy that was basically lynched online. You too. You have a good day, Avril. And so you guys can look at it. When you see this online, just share it, like it, whatever you do on the social media. I'm at over 207 subscribers, so that's good. If one person hears what I have to say, and then he researches it, and that person becomes a leader, and we have whatever that's going to be in the future, the white utopia, whatever you want to call it, or having a country how it was supposed to be founded on, then I'm fine with that. I'm going to die at some place any day. I just hope that we live on. Thank you for watching. You guys have a good day. I'll talk to you later. Bye.